Before we get started on this week's chapter, let's do a quick recap. Father Jay's reputation for being a good pastor and getting things done was becoming well known. So when they offered him a transfer to a very prestigious parish and he turned it down, they were quite surprised. He knew in his heart of hearts that that was not the path his ministry would take. But when they asked him to replace a well-known and much-loved pastor at Holy Trinity Church in downtown Detroit, it took 2 retreats and much soul-searching, not to mention arguing with God, before he finally agreed to take the assignment. Being the spiritual leader of a church in the inner city of Detroit was a daunting task, but he didn't have to tackle it alone. He had a lot of help, and he even earned the nickname Lebanese Leprechaun. Go back to last week's chapter for the interesting details. Now let's see how things progress at Holy Trinity. Chapter 35. Continuing the Miracle. While still at Holy Trinity, I received a letter from Prince George King. He was the founder of the Aetherius Society and also the Grand Knight of the Mystical Order of St. Peter, a worldwide organization equivalent to the Knights of England and the Knights of Malta. Prince George has about 5 or 6 titles and 7 doctorates he actually earned. The headquarters of the society was located in Los Angeles, California. He had heard of my work at Holy Trinity and sent me a personal invitation to be knighted in the Mystical Order of St. Peter at the next knighting ceremony. The timing was excellent. The ceremony was scheduled to take place in the month of October, at the very same time that we have our annual family reunion at the home of my sister Rose, who lives in a suburb of Los Angeles. My 3 sisters, Lillian, Elizabeth, and Jackie, Jackie's husband Craig, my brother Tony, and myself, all go there each year in October to visit. The whole family attended the ceremony with me. Jackie Day, a friend from Scottsdale, Arizona, also joined us. The hall was full. Prince George was in rare form that afternoon, waxing eloquent with his enlightening message and relaxing us with a bit of humor. Moments later, he named each person to be knighted to step forward. Then one by one, he placed the sword over one shoulder, then the other, as the knight-to-be knelt down. Each one would then stand fully knighted. Their name was announced, followed by an applause. When it was my turn to come before him, I knelt down just as the others did. He paused, then said, "Stand, Father. As a man of God, you kneel to no one." Then he put away the sword and said, "As one of God's chosen, you have no need of a sword." At that point, he placed his hand over one shoulder and then the other. He welcomed me as Sir Father J, Knight of Grace. It was an exciting moment. There were people from Europe as well as from Australia and other countries which I do not recall. Some already carried a high rank in their respective countries, such as title of Duke or Prince. One was addressed as Your Royal Highness. At the same time, a few were known for their outstanding service to others. There were dames and more than one princess also present. I am not into titles, but I found it amusing to witness such a gathering. When it was over, my family did not know what to call me. They were jokingly throwing words around such as Sir Father Dr. J or Doctor and Sir Reverend Father J. We all had a good laugh. Even Prince George chuckled when he joined us. I would not be exaggerating if I said that a book could easily be written about my 11 years at Trinity. Case after case went through our files, and each one would be deserving of attention. Of course, our records were confidential, and I would not be able to use names. When I first began my ministry at Trinity, I thought immediately of Damon Runyon and his stories about legendary people living in the questionable area of the city. Guys and Dolls is a good example. Not only the poor, unfortunate folks from the street were interesting characters, but the staff members, businessmen, and benefactors were equally unforgettable. Father Kern is one. He could be seen at any given day at Maxie's Deli or at Leo Dodarian's Anchor Bar or having a chat with Billy Joe Smith, an arbitrator for the union. All of these above-mentioned persons were characters in their own right. There have indeed been books written about Father Kern, Maxey, and Leo. It was interesting that among the four of them was a Catholic, a Jew, an Orthodox Christian, and a Baptist. They got along perfectly well and enjoyed continual success with programs for the poor. That was the key that brought them together, caring for the poor and for people with problems. They raised funds by establishing the Shakedown Society, initiated by Hank Shermer, another Jewish friend. How did the Shakedown Society work? Simple. Any customer coming into Leo's Anchor Bar was pressed into making a donation to help the less fortunate. In time, they would solicit funds at every opportunity, no matter where they were. Joe Weaver of Channel 2 was interested in Holy Trinity and the many fundraisers arising from a wide variety of sources. He was mostly interested in Father Kern and what happened to be his miraculous projects for the poor. Mr. Weaver researched Father Kern's work quite closely. He then put together a truly inspiring documentary made for video about Holy Trinity called The Miracle of Porter Street. Miracles happen all the time. I can testify to that. It did not take me long to witness enough extraordinary incidents that forced me to say, yes, there are miracles. I don't understand them, but they happen all the time. I recall when I faced the problem of our copier breaking down. It wasn't the first time, and we were told that it could not be fixed anymore. We had it for a few years, and we used it beyond its normal capacity. There were many organizations connected with our work, and the poor machine was in use constantly. At the staff meeting, it was made clear that I would have to order another copier. I told the staff that I called the same company concerning prices for a new copier. I shared with them that we could get a very reliable one for $2,500. Back in the early 80s, that was a good price. I added we did not have the money. If we were going to get another one, God would have to act very quickly. We prayed on it. The next morning, before we actually opened up our offices, the doorbell rang. A man shoved a check in my hand and took off. I yelled at him to come back for a moment. I wanted to know his name and what the check was for. He told me names were not important. He said that he was the executor for his grandfather's will and he had $3,000 that was supposed to be given to a good cause. Holy Trinity popped in my head. I don't even come here. I only heard about this place. He said he was simply following through on the suggestion made to him. Then he was gone. I never saw him again. I immediately thanked the Lord for such a quick response, and with interest no less. A few days before Thanksgiving in 1986, we ran into another crisis. We were about $2,000 short of what we needed to take care of the Thanksgiving dinner we put on every year for the hundreds of individuals without families, and also to deliver some turkeys to families who were in desperate need of one. The people in charge of that project came to me and asked what we were supposed to do about getting the turkeys, vegetables, desserts, etc. I told them confidently that we will have the money by the next morning. Do you have the money? Not right now, but it will be taken care of, I said, calming their fears. Later that afternoon, 3 men dressed in fine suits asked to see the pastor. I had them sit down in my office. They came right to the point. Father, we are 3 businessmen interested in helping some people out for Thanksgiving. Do you need any help at this time? I sat again in amazement. Yes, I said slowly, so as to not sound too excited. We need about $2,000. It looks like we came just in time. Within a few minutes, they signed a check for the exact amount, and we were on our way. Thanksgiving was saved. Just before Christmas, we were again short. We needed 200 more hams to fill nearly 600 baskets of food going out to needy families. I asked Sister Ann Currier, the pastoral minister, to go out and get the hams. She said, "Where?" I said, "You will know." She saw that look in my eye, meaning to go out in faith and the Lord will provide. She knew exactly what to do. She went out with Clayton Brundage, the funeral director and a benefactor of Trinity. They drove down Michigan Avenue, a main street near the rectory. He had no idea where they were going either. After about 10 minutes, she said, "Let's go in there." It was a trucking firm. She wanted to see the man in charge. She was taken into his office by his secretary. "What can I do for you?" "I'm Sister Ann, and I need 200 hams for Christmas baskets." "This is a trucking firm, sister, and we don't have anything like that here." Then, as if struck by lightning, he said, "Wait a minute. I know somebody who's in the ham business." He made one phone call, then hung up. "You will have 100 hams in the morning, sister." We did. I know God had a lot of things to take care of, but he always took time to help us out. One day after a Sunday Mass, I had just finished greeting everyone as they were leaving church. There was one person still standing there. He was waiting for me. He said he needed $5. Could I help him out? I reached under my vestment, searching for my pocket. I pulled out 5 singles and gave them to him. He was delighted. He said he really needed the money badly. I started to take my vestments off and noticed for the first time a businessman standing off to the side. He came up to me and said, "I saw what you just did." I replied innocently, "What did you see?" "You didn't even have time to take off your vestments and you were already helping someone out. I was deeply impressed," he said with a smile. I didn't know what to say. He reached into his suit coat pocket and pulled out a checkbook. He wrote out a check right then and there. I started to say thank you as I looked at the check. It was made out for $10,000. The only thing I could say was, "Wow." Sometimes God uses the men from the streets to help me out. On one particular morning, I was walking through the hallway of the rectory where the people sit while waiting their turn. We had 2 rows of old church pews, one on each side of the hallway. That particular morning, there were about 25 men sitting quietly. Then all of a sudden, one of the men began swearing at me, at God, at the church, at anything else he could think of. Then he pointed a finger at me and continued using very abusive language. I did not know exactly what to do. In my mind, I said a quick prayer for help to make the right decision. I did not want the men to see me back down like a weakling. They would lose confidence in me. I was not sure about throwing him out since it could end up in a fight, which I did not want. I didn't think I should enter a verbal battle with him. He used a lot of stronger language than I did. Thanks again for the help that came. One of the men sitting across from the man who was mouthing off got up and went over to him, took him by the collar, and lifted his 200-pounder with one hand. As he raised him slowly off the bench, he said forcefully, "You don't talk to the Father like that. Now you apologize." The tough guy with the abusive words shouted, "I apologize. I apologize." The strong arm of my champion let him down slowly as I marveled at his strength. He went back to his place on the bench and there was complete silence and respect. I also learned a lot from the clients. One day a lady came in with 12 little children. It looked like she had twins or triplets with every pregnancy. I said, "Are all these children yours?" "No, Father. These 6 are mine. The others belong to our neighbors." You see, the mother and father of those children had a big fight. We could hear them clear over to our place. Then they both left in separate cars and were gone. They never came back. I went over to see how the children were doing. They needed to be fed since they were so young, so I cooked for 12 children instead of 6. I don't mind, but after a few days now, I am out of food. Can you help me? Of course, I assured her. Here is a voucher that should cover a good supply of food. The voucher was for perishables such as milk, cereal, eggs, bread, etc. Besides that, we gave her a couple of boxes of canned foods from our basement supply. I wondered how many families would take in 6 extra mouths to feed if they were on ADC at that time. She was alone. Even if a husband and wife had sufficient money, I still wondered how many would take in 6 more children, not their own. Obviously, it was impressive to witness her generosity and sense of responsibility. I learned a lot that day. This story had a happy ending when the parents of the children next door returned. I also gained an important insight about the people who wandered through the streets. Some of them preferred to remain homeless and live on the street. They liked the openness, the lack of responsibilities, the drinking, and a feeling of freedom it gave them. One of these persons was, let me call him Patrick Aloysius, rather than his real name, a fine Irishman with a delightful Irish accent. His family was very concerned about him. They called one day from Bloomfield Hills, an exclusive part of town. They wanted to see him and have him come live with them. We asked him to come to the rectory on a certain day and time. He did, and so did his family. He went with them a little reluctantly and after a little persuasion. 1 month later, in walks Patrick Aloysius. He wanted some money for a drink. I wonder what he was doing back in the inner city. He had left a beautiful place, clean, nicely decorated, 3 healthy meals daily, a warm bed, and a loving family. It was not enough. He said he couldn't stand being walled in. The walls were definitely closing in on him, and he felt like suffocating. He needed the open air to feel like himself again, so he came back with empty pockets, walking the streets for hours and sleeping on an uncomfortable cot at a mission down the street. We helped him as much as we could. When we accepted him back, he looked at me and thanked me by saying in a beautiful Irish brogue, "Father, ye warm the cockles of me heart." There is no doubt that I could fill many more pages with real stories about real people. I believe the ones mentioned should help in understanding a small part of the enormous task that faced us daily at Holy Trinity Church, but also the blessings attached to that kind of service. Thank you for listening, and please join us every Sunday at 3 o'clock for our watch party as I premiere the next chapters of Father Jay's book.